Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this next episode of The Coaches Are In. I'm so excited today because I am joined by not only a colleague and someone I love to collaborate with, but a friend, Rachelle Lee, who's president of Einblau and Associates. Welcome, Rachelle. Thanks for coming on today.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Absolutely. So, listen, we're here today to talk about one of the topics that's very near and dear to my heart because I coach and train on it every day, but something you and I have been talking about maybe for a couple of years now when we get together and we talk about our leaders and how we coach and how we train and all of that. And that is leadership presence. And leadership presence can kind of be a buzzword that people don't necessarily know exactly what it means. They think they know what it means, but they're not exactly sure. Do I have presence? Is my presence good? So let's start with a question for you. What do you see as the modern day good version of leadership presence? What does that phrase or term mean to you?
Well, in modern day, but as in any time, leaders are having to deal with a lot. And so one of the things I just remind everybody is that when you're a leader, you're under the microscope. People are watching, they're looking to you for guidance, they're looking to you for structure, for so many things to lead the way and for inspiration to keep going, especially when things are really challenging. So in the modern day, it's how do you lead in a way that's true to yourself and your values, and how well do you understand yourself as a leader and your impact on others so that when you show up to be able to work with other people or to lead them, it's about them. It's not about you understand yourself and your impact, but what do they need from a leader in order to feel comfortable, to have a really good experience, to feel there's trust. And even with some of the hard messages we have to, unfortunately deliver as leaders, that they feel that they're on solid ground. And so that's why leaders need to work on that presence, define it, develop it so they show up with strength for the people that they're leading.
Yes, and for me, it is a lot about how you show up. And my formula, which is something that's in my workshop that I'm preparing for your Evolve Leadership Summit that's coming up in November. We'll tell people about that in a few minutes. But the formula that I teach is it's about your core values. So it is about you, like you said, being authentic and who you are and what you bring. It's about your core values. It's about your strengths. You and I are both strengths coaches in a way. And then it's also about, yes, how you show up. You use those words. And that's where, for me, the traditional notions of presence come in, your body language, your facial expression, eye contact, all of those things. But then the big element that I see that a lot of people miss, and you alluded to a little bit to it, actually a lot to it, is how you make other people feel.
Mm-hmm.
And that involves expert and active listening skills, empathy, emotional intelligence, making people feel that not only do they belong and that the work they do matters, but that they actually feel like their work they have significance in their work. So there's and you started by saying it's a lot. There's a lot to be aware of, both self-aware of and situationally aware of. When I do a workshop or when I do a coaching program on presence, I always ask, what does a good leader look like to you? And I hear things like make people feel empowered, good listener, supportive, fair,
Honest.
kind, honest, right, authentic, integrity, all of those things. And all of those things do fall into the soft skills realm of what I do as a trainer and coach, and I know a lot of what you do in your programs because I've seen you in action with that kind of stuff. So it really is a very all-encompassing thing, and I always tell people there's no one right way to have presence. You cannot be able to, and I say this in my workshops and say, you cannot be able to make full eye contact like I can't because of my lazy eye, but that doesn't mean I can't have presence.
Right.
I have to find my other way to do that. So what are some of the things that you see in your coaching, in your everyday, that leaders really need to be thinking about when they think about their own brand of leadership presence?
Well, and I think, at the beginning, one of the things is I feel like there's this pressure to lead like the people who've led before you. Almost that if you're going to be successful, then you have to be like them. Otherwise, you might be seen to be different or outside the norm. And I think that's a real challenge because Leaders need to bring themselves. They need to take good leadership skills, good process, good methods, but make it their own, make it from their own personality. Because otherwise, how is it going to be authentic? How can they stand there in strength when they get asked the tough questions? So they need to really find that presence. And I think that's why your workshop is going to be so valuable, and why we really wanted to have you there is for people to define that for themselves, because then you can be in a place of strength. And then you can understand the optics of what you're saying or how you're carrying yourself, or making choices around, when do I deliver this news? When do I have the big inspirational talk about where we're going and what we're doing about change that's going on in the world? So that's one thing I noticed. The other thing is that there's quite a bit of avoidance going on. And I think it's because of that discomfort is, I'm nervous about saying something. So maybe if I just avoid it, they'll just know we're working on it. But people are waiting, as I mentioned earlier, they're waiting for that guidance. They're waiting for those expectations. They want to know what those boundaries are. And instead of avoiding is actually stepping into it. And sometimes, it's unpleasant, but people need that from their leaders. Often I just say, we just need leadership, yet there are leaders. So, what does that mean for people? So stepping into it and finding the right way. And that's why, I'm so impressed with the work that you do in helping people in life science, leaders in life sciences, prepare for those high stakes presentations, because they can't get it wrong, because that might
Right.
be their one moment to have influence and get buy-in for what they're wanting to do. And so, how do you develop that? And so that you can just step into it. Sometimes they're really nerve-wracking moments. Sometimes you have to deliver not such great news, but to really own it from the perspective of, what do they need in order to feel really good about sticking with our organization and helping us achieve what we want together.
Yeah, and those moments take courage.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And courage can be courage, not the feel it, the skill or the strength is not necessarily uncomfortable, but that is often required in those uncomfortable moments. And the best leaders that I know have courage or summon the courage when they need it to have those either difficult conversations in the moment when they really need to be happened, or shortly thereafter, rather than waiting forever. I know that you teach that in your Coaching for Commitment course,
Mm-hmm.
about the mindset of, you're going to have more courage to have this conversation with someone when you reframe it in a way that makes you feel that you are supporting them, because that's really what you're doing. You're trying to help. You're having this difficult conversation, or this coaching conversation, this performance related conversation, because you want them to succeed.
Right.
And when you do that, then you can lead a little bit more with courage. And then you can also, if you know your core values, you can lean on your core values and have a values-based conversation as part of that interaction.
And I always say, as leaders, we need to work out our stuff, our insecurities. We all have them, our messaging and everything else with people, with experts like you. Get that straight. We use assessments to help leaders understand what their strengths are and where they might want to have, spend some time and priorities in their growth areas, so that gets all dealt with. So you're not actually working and developing that stuff as you're interacting with your people, as you're trying to deliver the messages. So let's learn about ourselves as leaders. What are our strengths? We always start there, because we start with the positives. And what are the gaps we need to fill in so that we can show up and make it about them? Because that's when people really lock into the vision that we have, the possibilities that we see, the engagement with each other, and all the things we're all striving for. Water flows downhill. It starts at the top.
Right. No, that's how we first met, was because we both used one of the same strengths assessments with our clients, the
Mm-hmm.
SDI. That was kind of our introduction to each other. And it is amazing how, when you use an assessment like that and you can help someone ground and feel good about their strengths
Yes.
and what they bring to the table, and then align those strengths with the values that they have, and they know themselves as a leader and they can be more confident. You mentioned the high stakes meetings. I mean, that's a lot of the work that I do in those meetings. Is, yes, I help them with their messaging and make sure their slides are clear and help them get ready to answer tough questions. But a lot of it is really just giving them the confidence of, you know your stuff. I'm just going to help you deliver it to the audience that needs to hear it in the way they need to hear it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's infinitely easier to do with someone when I'm working with someone who is grounded in their strengths, who does have good presence, especially when it comes to lead listening and empathizing. Because I'll tell you, one of the things that you can do to really win over a room is to empathize with them,
Yes.
is to honor their concerns, is to make them feel heard before you deliver your perspective. It's
Mm-hmm.
something that a lot of leaders really, really miss, and it's a critical present skill, because sometimes in these high stakes meetings, we can't openly persuade. It's not the right setting for that. Okay, you're not trying to give them the call to action. You're not trying to persuade them with ultra persuasive language. But you know how you can persuade? Make them feel that their concerns are valid and heard, and
Mm-hmm.
address them honestly and transparently, as transparently as you can and fully as you can. There's
Mm-hmm.
magic in that.
Well, and even if it's not something you agree with, or they say something or ask a question that makes you nervous, like, oh, I didn't really prepare for that, is we need to acknowledge it. Again, that's that courage and being able to step into it and acknowledge that's how they feel or what they're worried about.
Yes.
And then, talk to them about what the reality of the situation is and help them reframe it. And if you've got that belief, they will have the belief as well. But if we're trying to persuade, that just looks like we're trying to sell it. People, they feel that all day long. And so really what they're looking for is strong guidance and belief that we have to be able to pass along to them.
Yeah.
And also, over the years, I've always talked about being vulnerable and showing that, yeah, we have concerns too. And this is what we're doing about it. Crisis communications is a great, reference point. Is what do you do in a crisis? You don't run and hide and wait for other people to build the message. You just get out there and you talk about it, and you need good presence in order to be able to do that. But also just on a day to day, having that presence, being the one who gets out there and you're active and you're showing and engaging with people. If you want a culture where people are engaging with others, you better be doing that too. And if that's not your normal natural style, then you got to work on the presence.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I am super excited to see you. Hopefully, I'll see you before then, but to
Yes.
see you November 2025 at Einblau's Evolve Leadership Summit. This is a 40th anniversary celebration as well,
It
isn't it?
is. Our company is 40 years old, and Ron Einblau and his partner Harriet Lemmer, who started this business, they created something really wonderful, and we want to celebrate with leaders in the Canadian Rockies, and we have excellent speakers like you, and workshops, and lots of opportunity to really engage with each other around the wisdom of leadership. Very similar to what you're doing on your podcast.
Awesome. Terrific. Well, and I know, I mean, I'm going for the program and to facilitate, but I also know it's quite a nice resort up in the Canadian Rockies that you're hosting it at. And I think, is it the one where I think was it you that said, or did I read it, that that's where the G7 conference is actually going to be held in June, the same resort we're going to be in that? Is
Yes,
that
just
right?
in a couple of weeks. So if people didn't, if they didn't get an invite to the G7, well, we can take care of that.
Right.
Yeah, it's the very same place. It's beautiful. There are lots of amenities, and it's a good. It's the reason we're having it there is so that leaders can get away from the day to day, be amongst one another, and really have an opportunity for 2.5 days to think about their own world and what they want to achieve going forward, and how they want to be the leader they want to be.
I love it. Great. Well, I can't wait for everybody. In case you're interested, the dates are November 3rd through 5th, 2025. I'll drop the link to the website where you can learn more in the show notes for this. But in the meantime, Rachelle, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. I always love our chats. So
You're very welcome. I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and always love to have a chat with you at any time.
awesome. All right. Thanks again, my friend.
You're welcome. Bye for now.